Okay. Parshas Yisro, we have Moshe's father-in-law hears the miracles that the Jewish people experience, and he comes to join the Jewish people. And we see here the reaction. Everyone knew what happened to the Jews, but only certain people came and did something about it. Yisro, Moshe's father-in-law, came and did something about it, become part of the Jewish people. We're all inspired at some point in our lives. The question is, what are we going to do with it? So he comes, he sees that Moshe is taking a lot of time to answer people's questions, so he makes a suggestion that the Jewish people should have judges. Moshe shouldn't have to answer everybody's question all the time. And then we have the most monumental event to happen in human history, the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai. The Jewish people say, Nasa v'nishma, give us the Torah, then you can tell us what's in it. They're so ready to accept it. We read about the preparing of the giving of the Torah, then the 10 Commandments, the Seres HaDibros, which really are 10 Commandments. And the first two of the 10 statements, the 10 Commandments, were said by Hashem. So that's just a general summary of the parsha. Why is this so monumental, this event that happened, the giving of the Torah? I don't think we always appreciate how different it is from anything that's ever happened in history, and how it's so unique, and how it's the rock of faith, the basis of faith for the Jewish people, the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. But before we get to the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, what about the belief in Hashem, the belief in God? This is something my Rosh Yeshiva wrote, which really always struck a chord with me. He wrote this in his journal Dialogue for Torah Issues and Ideas. He said that, which is it's very true, that a human being naturally has an instinct that there's a creator, and also has an instinct that his life has a purpose. Right, everybody knows that. We all know that. Deep down, you ask anybody, they really know their life has a purpose. Right? Not necessarily intellectually, because they made it a proof, you prove to yourself that life has a purpose. You just know. Certain things you just know. You know your life has a purpose. It doesn't make sense that a person's life should have a purpose if we're all here by chance, if they're just random evolutionary processes that brought us here. It doesn't make sense that our life should have a purpose. So internally we know that our lives have purpose. That only makes sense if there's a creator. Otherwise everything's just random. My life doesn't have a purpose, it's meaningless. So that doesn't make any sense. And you see that anybody who really doesn't believe that his life has a purpose is probably in an insane asylum or seeing many therapists and a lot of medication, because people have crazy mental illness if they think their life doesn't have a purpose, like severe depression, things like that. Now, and we have this innate feeling that there is a creator, that there is a being here. Like I said, it's not intellectual, right? If I would say, how do you know your mother is not going to come into your room in the middle of the night and stab you? Is it intellectually you know that? Well, my mother's been really nice to me until now, and she makes me dinner every night. So, intellectually, probably she's not going to stab me in the middle of the night. That's not how you know. You know because you know, right? It's not because of intellectual proofs. You just know. You have your total sense of being tells you that your mother loves you and is not going to stab you. Our total sense of being tells us that there's a creator in our lives of a purpose. Right? It's because when it comes to logical proofs, are very powerful, but when it comes down to it, you can't really prove anything. Right? I can't prove that I drove here today. Maybe God created me at this moment. I was created at this moment with all of my memories intact leading up to this point, but I never really experienced them. Can I prove that never happened? Can't really prove it, but I know. I know that I lived until now. How do I know that I'm here speaking to you and that you're not a hallucination? Maybe I'm in an insane asylum in a padded room and I'm hallucinating this. I really don't give a shear anywhere. I'm really just like in a straitjacket somewhere. So I can't prove it. I mean, maybe, but I know it's not true. Same thing with believing in Hashem. So now, once we establish that there's a creator and that our lives have purpose, it only is logical that creator would tell us, well, what is our purpose? What are we supposed to be doing? That's when Maimon Har Sinai comes into being. Maimon Har Sinai is the unique event in human history, not just Jewish history, but human history. It's the point in history where God revealed to the world what he wants from man, what their purpose, what human beings' purpose should be. The Rambam writes, this is in the Laws of the Fundamentals of Torah, 8.1, Moshe Rabbeinu, lo heminu bo Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu, and by extension the Torah. The Jewish people didn't believe in him because of the miracles that he did. Shehamaimin al pia osos, if you believe in the Torah, let's say a miracle happens to you. Well, I believe in God because a miracle happened. Yesh libodoki, you could always have a question, you could always have a doubt. Yeah, the Red Sea split, but Maybe there was this tectonic plates there, and it just happened to be there was an earthquake, and you could always use people like that. I think we've all come across these people.
There's a documentary of this guy, Google it or something. And it's a documentary of how it all happened, how it's scientifically explained. But he said
there you go.
All 10 plagues with scientific explanation.
Yeah.
Each one of them.
He said at the end that's where it really comes from.
Right. Right, and it happened to be at that time when Moshe Rabbeinu said it was going to happen and all that. But there's always people that say things like that. You could always have even a illogical question. You have a question. Maybe it was done by magic, right? We believe there's such a thing called kishuf. Maybe it was done by some supernatural means. Why did Moshe do all these miracles in the desert? Because they were needed at that time. He wasn't trying to bring a proof to God or his prophecy. They needed to drown the Egyptians. The Egyptians they split the sea, and the Egyptians were drowned. We needed food. The man came down. We needed water. It broke the stone. The congregation of Korach rebelled. The earth swallowed them up. And also all of the other miracles that happened. So what do we believe? What's the reason we believe? The Maimin Har Sinai, the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Our eyes saw and not another. Our ears heard and not another. The fire and the sounds, and the different type of fire. Moshe approached the thick clouds, and the voice spoke to him. We heard Moshe. Go tell the Jewish people this and this. It says face to face. Hashem spoke with them. The Torah itself says, I didn't establish this covenant with your forefathers. Right, with you. It says, the Jewish people experienced God speaking to them at Mount Sinai. When you experience God, you can't have a question. If you experience a miracle, nature changed in front of you. So, it's very impressive. Most people would come to recognition of God. But you could always have a little bit of a question. Maybe it was witchcraft. Maybe it was a scientific this or that. If you hear God speak to you, you have an experience of Hashem. You can't deny that. It was something you experienced. And again, it's not just an intellectual thing that you saw. Your whole being, your whole essence experienced Hashem. You can't question something like that. And again, something we've mentioned many times before. This didn't happen to other people. Right? We are not studying about some ancient people that got a message that we're learning from that message. This happened to our forefathers. Right? For thousands of years, our forefathers have been having a Pesach Seder to commemorate that this happened to us. Their fathers, and their fathers, and their fathers, all the way back. We've been talking about the remembrance of the leaving of Egypt, like we talked about a few weeks ago, why that's so important. We talk about it every single day for thousands of years. We never said it was in other people. It was us, right? Other religions, like we've mentioned many times, they say, yeah, there was a fellow who said X, Y, Z. Oh, did that happen to your ancestors? No, he was in this place or that place, and there was a group that followed him, and usually what happened was that my ancestors' country was conquered by their ancestors, and now I follow their religion. But this happened to us. This is part of our nation. It's like, I'm reading a book now about Alexander Hamilton. So, nobody questions if Alexander Hamilton existed. I mean, he's part of the American consciousness. This was, right, we weren't even in America, but people he's part of it. He's part of the nation, part of the history of the nation. You can't deny that. There's a Jewish nation, right? We don't have a land right now. We have a land, but we're not all in the land. We haven't been in the land continuously, but we're all part of the same nation, the same people. It's no different. We have all of these acts and all these remembrances that we've been doing for thousands of years because this happened. It happened to us. So that's why we're saying at the giving of the Torah, we experienced Hashem. When a person has the experience of God, that can't be denied. Something can't be denied. And we're saying it's not coming from intellectual proofs. Intellectual proofs help. We said there's no such thing as a foolproof intellectual proof. So Hashem spoke the first two of the 10 commandments, the Seres HaDibros, to the Jewish people. We heard Hashem speak, and they're called the Luchos Habris, the tablets of the covenant. Meaning a bris is a covenant between us and Hashem. So, first of all, why these 10 things? Why these 10 statements? Why were they chosen? And also, if we're making a covenant between us and Hashem, if you look at half of the 10 commandments, they have nothing to do with Hashem. One is don't kill, don't steal, don't testify falsely, don't covet. What does that have to do with God? That's to do with other people. What?
The first three.
No, I'm saying that side has to do with Hashem. Right? I'm Hashem your God, don't have other gods before me, keep Shabbos. That also honoring your parents. Those have to do with God. So first, why these 10 things? So the Ramban has a whole sefer. The Ramban writes that all of these 10 statements include within it all of the rest of the mitzvahs of the Torah. They're all included, and he goes through each one. I think it's in the Sefer Torah, Hashem Tamima. He goes through how each of these 10 statements include the rest of the Torah. But Maharal Shiva said a very interesting thing as part of the reason for the second question. If this is a covenant between us and God, why do we have so many things that have nothing to do with God, have to do with other people? So he said a prerequisite for making God the main part of your life is to not be selfish, to think beyond ourselves. That's what Rabbi Feldman said, to think beyond ourselves. If a person only thinks of himself, he can't think of Hashem. So before we dedicate our lives to Hashem, because that's what we got at Maimon Har Sinai, we learned that the purpose of life is to serve Hashem. Revolutionary concept. That the purpose of life isn't just my own self-gratification and my own advancement, my own success, but really I should be focused in my life on serving God. Oh, now you want to do that? Step one, you have to learn to care about other people before yourself. The mark of a mature person is someone who cares about other people. And he said, it's interesting, it's a paradox. The way a person becomes perfected, you become a better person, you want to become a better person, it's by not thinking of yourself and thinking about other people. If you're only thinking about yourself, then you're not going to become a better person. So we're saying to make Hashem the focus of our lives, we need to first make other people the focus of our lives. Right? We always think, am I hungry right now? What do I need? Well, what does he need? Is he hungry right now? There's somebody who's going through a tough time. There's a widow, there's an orphan, there's a sick person. Maybe someone just a friend, he looks a little sad. Should I go out of my way to see how they're doing? All of these things are ways that we focus on other people, and obviously the 10 Commandments, the first thing is don't kill somebody, because that's the ultimate being selfish. Someone cuts you off in the road, so you take out your crossbow and shoot them. I remember there was a story, a priest did that many years ago.
Laser pistol.
Yeah, he did. You ever hear about Rabbi David Trank?
No, never heard the name before.
Oh, so I gotta tell you about. I'm friends with his son, Rashid Trank. He was in Yisro for many years, but his father, right down here on Route 9, 15 minutes south on Route 9, on the Elton Adelphia Road.
Really?
You take the U-turn and make a left. There's a yeshiva called the Adelphia Yeshiva.
Is that right?
Yes, it's used to be on the corner with the Burger King. It used to be a Burger King, or it used to be a Rogers. Now it's a Burger King.
Yeah.
Had a place in there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go make a left, probably half a mile down, is Adelphia Yeshiva on Elton Adelphia Road, right in Howell. Still there. Still Yeshiva.
Wow.
And Rabbi Trank, I think he was the Rosh Yeshiva. I'm not sure if he was the Rebbe. He was the Rosh Yeshiva. So he was there for many years, and he was known as the ultimate teacher, the ultimate mechanech. And they wrote a book about him, and it's called "Just Love Them." That was his motto. Just love them. Just love the students. And if you ask me after, I can send you a link to a YouTube video they made about him, which is phenomenal. It tells some stories. So this story I got from the YouTube video. You know, he had some troubled students, and there was a certain student that had an anger problem that he had. And this is his wife speaking, Mrs. Trank. He passed away, unfortunately, Rabbi Trank, a few years ago. And his wife was speaking about how her husband was always telling her how much he loves this student and how wonderful he is. So he talked about him like he was going to be like the future Gadol Hador, some great rabbi. He invited the student over for a meal, and the student, something got him angry, and the Rebbetzin was serving soup and lasagna, and he flipped over the table, the student, and got lasagna and soup everywhere. And it didn't bother him at all. And his wife said,
It bothered the Rebbetzin.
Oh, so she said it bothered her. She said, "This is the student that you're telling me about?" He says, "Yeah, he has a little problem, but I love him." A few weeks later, the Rebbetzin, she worked in the office of the yeshiva, and she sees this student, and he's punching Rabbi Trank in the face. She said 6 times, punched him in the face. And Rabbi Trank didn't do anything. And the Rebbetzin wanted to call the police.
Did he turn the other cheek?
So his cheek, he actually turned the other cheek, and he had to get surgery because his jaw was out of alignment. And years later, when Rabbi Trank was sick, when he was dying, this boy came and asked for forgiveness. And Rabbi Trank kept telling him, says, "There's nothing to ask me for forgiveness. You don't need to ask me for forgiveness. There's absolutely nothing to ask me." So the boy kept trying to. I said, no, you don't need to ask me forgiveness. There's nothing, you don't need to apologize for anything. So Rabbi Trank just said to him, he said, the last thing we're learning, he still remember what they were learning together. He said, let's continue, we never finished. And he sat down and they learned together. When he left, the Rebbetzin asked him, he said, why don't you let the boy apologize to you? Like, well, he punched you in the face. Look, all the stuff he did. He said, the boy had an anger problem. I knew that. He had an issue. But imagine there's a boy, and let's say his face is disfigured, and it's like ugly, and has warts and ooze coming out of his face, and it bothers you. Would that boy need to apologize to you? Of course not. He can't control it. This boy, he can't control it. He has this issue. Why should he have to apologize? So that
to a shrink.
Okay, maybe he was right, obviously. But the point that I want to bring out here is just the way you could view another person. To be down the cuffs to that point. Because Rabbi Trank, the whole purpose of his life was helping students. So when it comes to viewing ourselves, we definitely shouldn't view ourselves like that. We should say, I'm an angry person, I'll get over it. When we view ourselves, we should be tough on ourselves. Within reason. When we view another person, we say, okay, they probably can't control it. They had a tough childhood. He has something in the brain, a crick in the brain he can't control. There's a person in there. There's a holy Jew inside. Rabbi Trank didn't see any of the stuff on the outside. Now, this is an extreme example, but this is just showing what a person that spends his life, right? Rabbi Trank did not end up like this overnight. A person who spends his life dedicating himself to students and to other people with the motto of just love them, such a person gets to the point where his student's punching him in the face 6 times, and it doesn't even bother him. And he gets offended when the person asks for forgiveness.
Probably would get angry when he was being refused acceptance of his apology.
I guess when he was dying of cancer or whatever, then he was able to control himself a little bit. The Vilna Gaon says that the whole foundation of the 10 Commandments, which is the whole foundation of the Torah, is the 10th commandment. 10th commandment is lo sachmo, don't covet. Don't be jealous of your neighbor. Don't be jealous of your neighbor's wife, your neighbor's friend. The reason is because that's the yisod of everything. Don't be selfish. He has what he has. I have what I have. I want him to be successful. Right. I should be happy with what he has. Once we can focus on others and learn to not be selfish, when we become mature and maybe one day get to the point where someone could hurt us and we don't respond because he's another human being. I respect him. He had a tough day. And we can look at another person and say, I wish I got angry at him. He had a tough day. Who knows what he went through? When we get to that point, that's be very good.
Other-centered.
Yeah. Just to go other-centered. Exactly. So just to go back, said that when Hashem gave the Torah, He told the Jewish people that this wasn't when He gave us the Torah, it wasn't like a thing. It's like a nice book if you want to like you buy in Barnes and Noble for spiritual meditation and yoga. This will enhance your life. That wasn't the idea of the Torah. The idea of the Torah is that the purpose of life, and therefore the way to make a human being to be happy, is to serve Hashem, and that should be the goal in life. So this is a very obvious idea, I think, once I heard it, but the way I was listening to Rav Einstadter, a Rebbe of mine from Yisro, and the way he explained it was just very, very powerful to me. He says that Mesilas Yesharim starts, and Mesilas Yesharim, we've mentioned before, is the book about how to be a good Jew and how to serve Hashem properly. So the first thing he writes is, Yisod HaChasidus Sheshorish Avodat Mimahu. This is the very first line of the Sefer. Aaron knows, he learns this. It says, the foundation of piousness and the root of service, of perfect service, who sheyizbar. So what would you think? The root of perfect service of Hashem. What's the first thing? The first thing to do. He says, sheyizbar v'yizamis es al adam machav azav. The first thing you have to do is to clarify and to make true to yourself what your purpose is in the world. What you should put in your effort your entire life. First thing is, why am I here? You have to figure out why you're here to put in the effort. It says, I had a friend in high school who used to say, David, you're too obsessed with this Jewish stuff. Okay, so he had a point, but let's look at it like this. Let's say there's a guy, this is the mashal that, I used to also swim. I swam in high school, I swam a little before. This is actually the mashal that Rabbi Einstadter gave. He says, let's say his goal in life is to become an Olympic swimmer. So to accomplish to be an Olympic athlete, you have to practice 9 hours a day. Not only that, everything you eat, you have to make sure that this is going to help my goal to become an Olympic champion. And I'm only going to eat the right things. And how I sleep. And where I live. If there's a trainer that I can go to. Is there a pool I can go to?
With steroids.
No, swimming, chas v'shalom. That's only bicycling. Only biking. So everything you do. Now, would a person say to him, you're spending 9 hours in the pool, you're insane? No, because his goal is to become an Olympic swimmer. Now, you could tell him that his goal is wrong, that it's a dumb goal, but once you agree that this is your goal, you wouldn't say he's insane for being in the pool 9 hours a day. So once we clarify to ourselves that our purpose in life is to serve Hashem, would you say a guy's insane for studying Torah so much, for doing so many mitzvahs, for deciding that he's going to take a pay cut in his job so that he has more time to study Torah and be with his family and do mitzvahs? You wouldn't say that, right? You're obsessed with his Jewish stuff. Well, okay, if it was like a hobby, like model trains, then yeah, but if it's the purpose of my life to serve Hashem, not at all. That's the purpose of my life. I'm like the Lahavdil, the swimmer, who wants to work 9 hours a day to serve Hashem. So I just thought the way he explained that was a very appropriate. So what are we saying? We're saying that the Maimon Har Sinai, the giving of the Torah Mount Sinai, was an event, the most important event in human history. There has never, even the Torah says, see if a nation has ever claimed to experience such a revelation, to hear the voice of God and live. No such thing. Not only has no such thing ever happened, besides this in human history of the Jewish people, no nation has ever even claimed that it happened to them. This is a totally unique event that happened to our forefathers. We have such a beautiful and true and impressive heritage that no other people have. And Hashem told us that the purpose of life, He said, first, Benam Mechavero, focus on others, to be selfless, and it takes work. It's not easy. It's hard. Life is hard work. And to accept the yoke of heaven, that the goal of life is to serve Hashem. And once we clarify that that's our purpose, right? Our problem is that we don't always think it's our purpose, because there's the Yetzer Hara, there's things that block us. But with the times that we really believe it's our purpose, so then it makes total sense that, yeah, I just heard from Rav Hershel Schachter. He was speaking about a lawyer who was very bright. He had the opportunity to become a partner in a firm. But to become a partner in a firm in Manhattan, you have to, basically people that sleep over at the office. They don't go home. They're working crazy hours. So he had that opportunity. He said some of his friends, their goals were to be millionaires, lawyers that were millionaires, and they had to work that hard. That wasn't his goal. He wanted to support his family, but he wanted to study Torah. He wanted to become a Ben Torah, and he wanted to spend time with his family. So he made those decisions in life. Some people would look at him, those lawyers that wanted to make the millions, like, you're nuts. You're brilliant. You could be arguing cases, for multi-billion-dollar corporations and making a huge salary. What is this guy out of his mind giving up this opportunity? No, and he thinks they're out of his mind. You're wasting your whole life running after money and not doing what you're really here for. So that's a few things we learn from this week's parsha.
Yes, sure.
I have time.